years in prison by a magistrate's court, but the court suspended his prison sentence in April. The case was filed by Purnish Modi, who is a member of Modi's Bharatiya Janata Party in Gujarat state, but is not related to the Prime Minister.
Explosions have been reported overnight near the Russian port of Novorossiysk on the Black Sea. Footage shared on social media on Friday appeared to show loud blasts at the port, which is a major hub for Russian exports. Russia's defense ministry said it had repelled a Ukrainian attack on its naval base there with 2 sea drones. It said the drones had been spotted and destroyed by the Russian ships guarding the outer harbor of the naval base. The port temporarily suspended any movement of ships following the attack, according to the Caspian Pipeline Consortium, which loads oil onto tankers at the port. Sea drones are small, unmanned vessels which operate on or below water surface.
The ministry announced 26 measures to tackle sluggish consumption, looming real estate sector crisis. China will allow some foreigners to obtain visas on arrival and rural residents to settle more easily in cities as part of a series of measures aimed at boosting its flagging economy. The relaxation aims to promote the free movement of people, vehicles, information and data, an official from the Ministry of Public Security said Thursday. China's post-COVID recovery has 26 new measures on Thursday, including a new visa policy for foreign business people. Those who come to China to participate in trade negotiations, expos, conferences, or to invest will be able to obtain visas on arrival, provided they present the necessary documents.
2 U.S. Navy sailors in California have been arrested on charges of providing sensitive military information to China. Jin Chao-wei, 22, a naturalized U.S. citizen, is accused of conspiring to send national defense information to a Chinese agent. Petty Officer Wenheng Zhao, 26, was arrested on charges of accepting money for sensitive photos and videos. It is unclear if the same Chinese agent is alleged to have contacted the pair. Both men were arrested on Wednesday in California, Mr. Wei while on his way to work at Naval Base San Diego. Prosecutors announced the charges during a news conference in San Diego on Thursday. They said Mr. Wei, who served as a machinist mate on the amphibious assault ship USS Excess, held a security clearance and had access to sensitive information about the ship. He was allegedly approached by a Chinese agent in February 2022 while he was going through the process of becoming a U.S. citizen.
South Korea country does not recognize same-sex unions. Seoul City authorities declined to register for her marriage. So when the happy couple decided they were ready to have a baby, their domestic options were limited. Single people are typically deemed ineligible to adopt, and sperm banks are designed for heterosexual married couples with fertility issues. Both Kim Kyu-jing and her wife Kim Seo-yeon, they shared the same last name by coincidence, decided to try anyway, and thanks to IVF using donor sperm in Belgium, Kyung-jing is now 8 months pregnant. The couple plan to have the baby in their home country at the hospital where Seo-yeon is a doctor, and have decided to speak publicly to raise awareness of same-sex parenthood in South Korea.
Penal Colony No. 6 is 240 kilometers east of Moscow. Navalny, the Kremlin's most vocal critic, is already serving a 9-year term there for parole violations, fraud, and contempt of court, charges widely seen as politically motivated. His time behind bars looks set to be extended. In June, a hall in the penal colony was turned into a makeshift courtroom, and Navalny was back in the dock. The charges against him this time include creating an extremist organization and financing extremist activities. Russian state prosecutors have called for a 20-year prison sentence for Navalny in an even more restrictive special regime colony. Such prisons are normally reserved for Russia's most dangerous criminals. In a message posted on social media ahead of the verdict, which is due on Friday, Navalny expressed his belief that he would be handed a big prison term. Russian opposition leader Alexei Navalny, his wife Yulia, opposition political Lyubov Sobol, and other demonstrators march in memory of murdered Kremlin critic Boris Nemtsov in downtown Moscow on 29 February 2020.
Taiwan's new anti-sexual harassment laws have been seen as a first step in addressing its Me Too reckoning, but activists say they still fall short. The ruling Democratic Progressive Party raced to toughen laws after it was hit by a wave of sexual assault claims. It led to several resignations from the party and sparked further allegations against other powerful figures, including celebrities. The new law, which were passed this week, come ahead of a crucial election. Law professor Caroline praised the chances as a legislative milestone, but said it will take time for society to shed a entrenched mindset that normalizes sexual harassment. Although Taiwan has long been hailed as a progressive democracy, much of its society remains deeply, the Wildlife Department said. The woman who was flown to the hospital had severe bites to her face and arms, NBC Montana reported. The other two had superficial wounds, the station reported. The women all are Montana residents.
The man accused of killing 4 University of Idaho students went for a drive alone the night and morning before their bodies were found, his defense attorney wrote in court documents. Brian Koberger, 28, was indicted on Monday on 4 counts of murder and other charges in connection with the stabbing deaths of the 4 students who were found dead in a home off campus in November 13. In a motion filed Wednesday by his attorneys objecting to a motion by the prosecution, Koberger said he was out driving late November 12th and into the next day. Mr. Koberger has long had a habit of going on drives alone. Often he would go for drives at night. He did so late on November 12th and into November 13, 2022, his attorney wrote. The bodies of the students, Ethan Chapin, Madison Morgan, Zana Kenodo, and Kaylee Goncalves, were found in a home in Moscow, Idaho, after someone called 911 just before noon, authorities said. Idaho mother suspects claim to have alibi for nights of killings. Attorney for Koberger wrote in the motion field Wednesday that Koberger was driving into the early morning hours of November 13. The motion does not specify a time.
China is lifting a stifling 3-year-old tariff on Australian barley starting Saturday, a sign of an improving bilateral trade relationship since Australia's government change. China effectively closed its door to Australian barley in May 2020 by imposing an 80.5% tariff after the previous Australian government angered Beijing by calling for an independent inquiry into the origins of and responses to the COVID-19 pandemic. On Friday, both governments confirmed the resumption of trade in the grain that was worth 960 million Australian dollars in the year before China blocked imports. Australian Prime Minister Anthony Albanese welcomed the breakthrough, which comes as he plans his first visit to Beijing as government leader before the end of the year. This is a very positive decision, Albanese told reporters. When Albanese's government was elected in May 2022, he demanded Beijing drop a series of official and unofficial trade barriers against Australian exports, including barley, wine, coal, beef, wood and seed food that were costing producers $15 billion a year.
8 people were killed when a freight train struck a pickup truck crossing the tracks in an eastern province of Thailand early Friday morning, authorities said. The accident at 2:20 a.m. also injured 4 people in the Muang district of Chachen Skau province, according to the State Railway of Thailand. The 54-year-old driver, Wuchai Yulek, told authorities that he saw the approaching train and heard a warning horn. He slowed, but passengers in the vehicle urged him to keep going. When he realized the truck was heading for a collision, he could not stop in time, the railway agency said. The deceased included an 18-year-old, 2 people in their 20s, and 5 people over 55, while the injured victims, including 4 men in their 20s, the railway said.
South Korean police detained a man suspected of stabbing a high school teacher with a knife Friday in the city of Daejeon. The stabbing follows a separate, apparently random attack on Thursday in which 14 people were wounded near a busy subway station in Seogyeonam. Officials at the Daejeon Metropolis Police Agency didn't immediately release the personal details of the suspect in the Friday morning attack on the teacher at Suncheon High School, describing him only as a man in his late 20s. According to police, the suspect waited for the teacher to step out of a classroom before stabbing him and fleeing the scene, which according to officials suggests they were acquaintances. Police and fire department authorities did not specify the teacher's health condition. The attack in Daejeon, about 120 kilometers south of Seongnam, came hours after President Yoon Suk-yeol came for ultra-strong law enforcement measures to restore faith in public safety after Thursday's violence, which he described as a terrorist attack on innocent citizens.
Residents of Japan's southwestern islands were warned of high winds and rain Friday through the weekend as Typhoon Kanun made a U-turn and is now moving back east. The meteorological agency said that Kanun is heading to Okinawa and nearby islands that were already lashed by its winds and rain earlier this week. Kanun has sustained surface winds of 126 kph with higher gusts Friday afternoon, the JMA said. Up to 15 centimeters of the rain was expected in the Okinawa region by Saturday and up to 30 centimeters in the Amami region, an island group belonging to the southern main island of Kyushu. By Sunday, JMA said Kanun had been stronger with sustained winds of 180 kph when it crossed the islands Tuesday, damaging homes and knocking out power. The Okinawa prefectural government said 44 people were injured, 3 of them seriously. 2 deaths were being investigated as typhoon caused, but are not in the official death toll.
Haitians are expressing skepticism over an offer by Kenya to lead an international police force aimed at combating the gang violence that has cracked the Caribbean nation. They say the sexual abuse and the devastating cholera outbreak that have accompanied foreign forces in past decades don't inspire much trust. But Haitians also say uncontrolled bloodshed in their country leaves them with few other options. Florence Casimir, an elementary school teacher, said that while past international interventions have damaged Haiti, their abuses didn't compare to the brutality of gangs which kidnap their students and force parents to pay hefty ransoms. It will never be better than past interventions, but the Haitian people don't have a choice at this point. Casimir said the Haitian people can't fight it on their own. This is International Tit-Bits. We will go on a very short break and we will be right back.
Our lives are changed by history.
We are one people, all of us.
Leaders, politics.
Nobody's ambition is what they blood.
I have fought very firmly.
Natural occurrence, war, and the world economy.
I belong to everybody, and I belong to nobody.
ATN covers it all on ATN Politics today.
Welcome back. If you're just joining us, this is International Tit-Bits on Atlantic Television Network. Now the rest of our stories. Cyprus Veterinarians Association on Friday lauded the government decision to allow its stock of human coronavirus medication to be used on cats to fight a local mutation of a feline virus that has killed thousands of animals on the Mediterranean island. The association said in a statement that it had petitioned the government for access to the medication at reasonable prices from the beginning of this year, when the mutation that causes lethal feline infectious peritonitis began to noticeably crop up in the island's cat population. We want to ensure that we will continue to investigate and control the rise in cases of F-CoV 2023, the association said. Local animal activists had claimed that the mutation had killed as many as 300,000 cats, but association president Nectaria Lonau Asinoglu says that's an exaggeration. Asinoglu had told the Associated Press that an association survey of 35 veterinary clinics indicated an island-wide total of about 8,000 deaths.
6 white Mississippi police officers tortured 2 innocent black men using a sex toy, tasers, and a sword in an hour-long attack that ended with one man shot through the mouth and neck, the U.S. Department of Justice said Thursday. The brutal assault and its subsequent cover-up, in which the men left one victim bleeding as they hid evidences of their crimes, is the latest race-tinged stain on U.S. policing. The defendants in this case tortured and inflicted unspeakable harm on their victims, egregiously violated the civil rights of citizens who they were supposed to protect, and shamefully betrayed the oath they swore as law enforcement officers, said Attorney General Merrick Garland. 5 now former members of Mississippi's Rankin County Sheriff's Department and 1 former member of the Richland Police Department pleaded guilty Thursday to multiple charges, including civil rights conspiracy, deprivation of rights under color of law, and obstruction of justice. All 6 acknowledged that while responding to a report of suspicious activity on January 24 this year, they kicked in a door at a house and began a sustained and unprovoked attack on 2 black men there.
An appeal court Thursday allowed a rule restricting asylum at the southern border to stay in place. The decision is a major win for the Biden administration, which has argued that the rule was integral to its effort to maintain order along the U.S.-Mexico border. The new rule makes it extremely difficult for people to be granted asylum unless they first seek protection in a country they're traveling through on their way to the U.S. or apply online. It includes room for exceptions and does not apply to children traveling alone. The decision by the U.S. Ninth Circuit Court of Appeals grants a temporary reprieve from a lower court decision that had found the policy illegal and ordered the government to end its use by this coming Monday. The government had gone quickly to the appeals courts, asking for the rule to be allowed to remain in use while the larger court battles surrounding its legality play out. The new asylum rule was put in place back in May. At the time, the U.S. was ending the use of a different policy called Title 42, which had allowed the government to swiftly expel migrants without letting them seek asylum. The stated purpose was to protect Americans from the coronavirus.
Justice Elena Kagan publicly declared her support for an ethics code for the U.S. Supreme Court, said that there was no consensus among the justices on how to proceed, suggesting the High Court is grappling with public concerns over its ethics practices. It is not a secret for me to say that we have been discussing this issue, and it won't be a surprise to know that the 9 of us have a variety of views about this, she said Thursday at a judicial conference in Portland, Oregon. The Supreme Court is navigating a fraught moment in its history. It has come under growing scrutiny for its lack of an official code of conduct, and public trust in the body is set as a 50-year low following a series of polarized rulings, including the overturning of Roe v. Wade and federal abortion protections last year. The Associated Press obtained thousands of pages of documents that show how the court's ideological divide have lent the prestige of their positions to partisan activity by headlining speaking events with prominent politicians or to advance their own personal interests such as book sales through college visits, and reporting from ProPublica earlier this year revealed Justice Clarence Thomas participated in lavish vacations and a real estate deal with a top Republican donor.
Almost as soon as Donald Trump was officially hit with a new federal indictment, Joe Biden was ready to go nuclear. Before he could catch a 6:30 p.m. showing of Oppenheimer, a blockbuster summer movie about the development of the first atomic bomb, the president and the first lady settled in for a quick early dinner Tuesday night. As special counsel Jack Smith was addressing the nation, accusing the former president of trying to steal the election from the current president, Biden was seated across from his wife in a booth at a local seafood restaurant waiting for their entries. Summer vacations have at times invited and welcomed split screens for Biden and his predecessors as unforeseen events demand a president's attention, just as they had hoped to step out of the spotlight. We will be on a short break, and when we return, we will take on the conversations for today. Welcome back. If you're just joining us, this is International Tit-Bits on Atlantic Television Network. And to join us in our conversation for today is an international affairs analyst, George Kingsley Papami. Thank you so much for joining us. It's good to have you. All right, let's look at our issue for today. The military junta in Niger Republic has cut off ties with Nigeria after the efforts of Economic Community of West African States, ECOWAS, to resolve the ongoing impasse failed. ECOWAS had issued a 7-day ultimatum for the reinstatement of President Mohamed Bazoum to avoid possible clash with the junta. But President Bola Tinubu sent a high-powered delegation to the country to meet with the coup leaders on Thursday. The delegation, led by General Abdusalam Abubakar, retired, only met with representatives of the junta. Subsequently, Niger severed ties with Nigeria, Togo, France, its colonizer, and the United States. The functions of the extraordinary and plenipotentiary ambassadors of the Republic of Niger to the France, Nigeria, Togo, and the United States are terminated. Reporters quoted one of the punchists to have said on national television of the Presidential Guard, and that evening the military announced that it has ceased power. 2 days after toppling the government of Bazoum, General Abdurrahmane Chiani, the commander of Niger's Presidential Guard, declared himself the head of the transitional government. Meanwhile, the U.S. has thrown its weight behind the ECOWAS, led by the Nigerian President Bola Tinubu, to reinstate Bazoum. Now, it's generally believed that the African bloc would have, talking about the ECOWAS, would have been able to gain some level of influence and put an end to what is going on right now in Niger Republic, but an outright turn down of the ECOWAS authorities, their ultimatum and disconnection with the other nations that are back in the ECOWAS. So what signal do you think, Mr. George, that sends to this fight and also to the global community?
Yes, from all indications, I think what we are looking at here is a democratic elected government that has been toppled by some juntas who are dissatisfied with the activities of government. And, you know, in a setting like this, where a government has been toppled, it's a very serious case. And in such serious cases, there are bound to be negotiations. The negotiations is not a negotiation of 3 months. It is not a negotiation of 6 months. It's a negotiation that can last to bring peace. And if we look at the procedures of settlement, by that I mean the non-kinetic procedures. The non-kinetic procedures are simply diplomatic procedures. And diplomatic procedures are procedures that have been existing right from the UN Charter. It's there in the UN Charter, the diplomatic procedures. And the diplomatic procedures are: one, the ECOWAS leader, who is President Tinubu, has the power. That means his office, I'm talking about his office, has the power to use its good offices to address such matters. That is one. Then number two, there is the procedure of negotiation. There's also the procedure of mediation. There's also the procedure of conciliation. That's why I said it is not a short-term negotiation process. It's a negotiation process that can last as well as it can bring peace to the region. Because right now, the juntas have made a statement. And the statement is that they are ready for war. All right, they are ready for war. And Nigeria and other African countries, as well as the other civilized countries in the Western bloc, cannot wake up one morning and say they are going to war. No, it's not acceptable. So you think the strategy of the ECOWAS leadership wasn't too good in the instance? No, it is. It is. That is to say, to tell them that this is the position of ECOWAS, giving them an ultimatum of 7 days. That's about what we're saying here is that looking at the way the matters is to be held, it has procedures. The procedures must be followed. All right? The procedures must be diplomatic. The diplomatic procedures are the ways and means to bring lasting peace. That's what we're saying. We're not talking about war because already the juntas are ready for war. So since the juntas are ready for war and the strategy of making peace talks and negotiations are being formed to be a procedure that must be followed, I think the ECOWAS at this time do not have any option than to adopt the policies. And Tinubu has taken the first step to send a delegation from his office to say this is what we want and this is how we want this matter to be addressed. I think right now, even though the juntas are making a stiff refusal, I think it's not the end of the road. There are still processes and procedures to follow to bring them on the round table, and then it can be resolved. Because right now, if a democratic elected government in Niger Republic is overturned, I think there is every right for every person around the world to question the necessity of democracy being played by the people.
Okay.
And here, we're talking about the rights of the citizens.
Okay, so do you think that the other African countries coming together to also seek for peace from the juntas, do you think that this would aid their coming back?
Yes, of course, because right now I think sanctions have been placed. Sanctions are coming both front and center. That means to say they have to look at their economy, because certainly if there are sanctions that are coming from every spectra of their survival and the existence of their nation, I think they will take the bold step to look on one option to say this is the option that we need. You understand me? Because right now they are waiting for an option and the option has not come and they are still holding on their decision. I think they should be given time for them to come up with a strategic result on how the problem should be solved.
Now, if you look at this particular issue in Niger right now, with the fact that they have the backing of nations like Russia and even the Wagner mercenary, do you think this is going to be an easy nut to crack with the efforts of the ECOWAS, talking about the fact that, first of all, they issued a 7-day ultimatum, which right now we don't know how that is going to be, and the fact that the president has later on sent emissaries to go in for negotiation, which they also did not honor as expected. What do you think the influence from the Russian nation is going to bring up to this?
Yes, since there are blocks, here right now we're talking about blocks. Since there are blocks that are into the system, I think that's what I said, the negotiation process is unlimited. You understand me? In diplomacy, the negotiation process is unlimited and it's unrestricted. So instead that move, I think it is systematic. At this stage, it is systematic. They have to apply it systematically until they get results. And the application of systematic move should not in any way be used by force. All right, it should not be used by force, because here we are talking about how to save a situation. And while you are saving a situation, it will not be good for you to apply force in it, because we are only waiting if the juntas will, in their own, you understand, retaliate upon the fact that they are being given sanctions. If they retaliate in that aspect, I think there are issues and there are charges that can be laid against them for not adhering to negotiations.
It's a good thing that the ECOWAS leadership has deemed it fit to go the line of negotiations, and we hope that as much as the first hasn't been very fruitful, subsequent negotiations will definitely save the situation in Niger Republic. We look forward to that very day. This is a much we'll take on today's International Tit-Bits on Atlantic Television Network. Thank you so much, Mr. George, for joining us.
Sure.
And thank you, my co-host Valentina Lawrence, for being here.
It was my pleasure.
And thank you, our viewers. You made it very great. Thank you for being a part of it. And if you missed anything, you can follow us on our social media platforms: Facebook and YouTube at Atlantic Television Network, Instagram and TikTok at Atlantic TV Network 1, Twitter at Atlantic TV Net, or you can watch us live on our website at atlanticnetwork.tv. I am Anita Obari. Do remember that peace and unity are the pathways to progress.